Hello, and welcome to the Hot Corner Podcast, brought to you by Play MSP. And now to our hosts, Brittney Heil and Matt Williams.
Hi, welcome to another episode on the Hot Corner Podcast. I'm your host, Brittney Heil, and co-host Matt Williams. Hi, Matt.
What's up? Pumped to be here. We're coming in hot with the Hot Corner Podcast today.
We are going to talk mindset, controlling what you can control, leaving the uncontrollables behind us. So the majority of things in our life you cannot control. For example, what other people say and do. When you're on the field, you can't control the umpires. You can influence the outcome of the situation, but you can't control it. So this episode, we're really going to try and hone in how you can practice controlling what you can control.
And like this, just to jump in, Brittney, too, I mean, it's especially relevant right now because we're, at the time of this recording, we're stuck at home with all this coronavirus stuff. So you talk about things you can't control. Freaking A, the coronavirus is one of those. And so it's like, how can we stay positive? How can we stay focused on putting our energy where it matters, not where it's wasted? So
That's such a great point. And leading into that, we're going to talk about like ways to do that. And that's practice. Every day you got to practice your mindset. Some days you'll wake up and it's hard. Some days are going to be a lot harder than others. But if you can practice your mindset and being positive and looking at only what you can control, it'll make a world of difference. So Matt, going into this on the field, what are some of the things that we can control?
I mean, definitely some of the things that we can control. On the field, we can control how well we prepare. Have we taken the swings that we need? Have we, concentrated on our bullpens? Have we taken the ground balls? We can control our preparation for sure. We can control our attitude with things. Is it positive? Is it negative? Now, it's not always easy, but we do have control over if we're staying positive or not. I think another thing that we can control is our focus or our concentration. Are we present where our feet are, or are we letting our mind wander to all the other justifiable distractions that are important in our lives, but at the same time can take away from our performance? And, I think another thing that comes to mind right off the top of my head too is just that you can always control your effort. There's never an excuse to not hustle. Like, I don't care what happened. I don't care why, how you made it out, how bad your day's going. You can always hustle. And so I think our effort is something else that we have control over at all times.
Yeah, effort. And you mentioned staying positive. Positive isn't just being vocally positive. It's your body language. You could have positive, you could be cheering on your teammates, but if you have a negative body language, then it's going to come out of your voice too. Negativity will. So having positive body language, standing tall, smiling, your head's up, you're not down, walking away from your teammates, that makes a big difference too, just within your mindset. And I think a lot of people, if you strike out, or if you get criticized or getting, feedback on something you did wrong or the error you made, people kind of go into that shell, and it's overcoming that shell and coming out of it and looking at it as a positive and getting better so you don't do that again, or going back in your preparation and fixing what didn't work.
100%. Because I think about the question, like, when has being negative ever helped anything? Like, we all want to succeed. We want to win. We want to perform well. We want to enjoy what we're doing. It's like, literally, I don't know any way, shape, or form that negativity helps. And I read this quote the other day. A lot of our parents and coaches might have heard the name Zig Ziglar, famous speaker and stuff. But his quote was like, a positive attitude doesn't literally automatically make things better for you, but a positive attitude makes you better at all the things that you are doing. So it's like, just because you're in a good mood doesn't mean you're going to go get a hit or you're going to go strike out the batter. But I guarantee you that a positive attitude is going to give you a better chance to get a hit, can give you a better chance to succeed in terms of your performance. So,
and even if I can mention and piggyback up on that, you put your team in a better place too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be your day every single day. If it's not your day, it's going to be your teammate's day. And then your teammate, if it's not their day, it's going to be your day. I mean, you got to work together with your positive attitude.
100%. I think being a great teammate falls under everything that we're talking about. Like, if the cool thing about being a great teammate is, like, if I'm 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts and I'm like, this is the worst day on the field ever. But if I know that I was a great teammate, it's like, well, shoot, I helped the team today. I didn't help in terms of getting a hit or strike or just had a bad day offensively. But if you come to the park and every time you're in a dugout that you are just pumping up your teammates, you're looking for ways to encourage and help them out, then like it's like you're guaranteed to bat 1,000. Like, sign me up for that. Like, I want to bat 1,000, and because you can do that at all times. And again, just to reiterate, I mean, I don't know, Brittney, if any examples or anything come to mind, because like this isn't easy, so we're definitely not pretending like, as we're working with young athletes and stuff, we don't want to make them think that their feelings and their emotions aren't legitimate, because they're real. And it's okay to feel those things. It's like, what do we do with them? And so that's where I don't know if any examples come to mind from your playing or your coaching days, but it's like feelings are real. So we want to make sure that we validate that with our athletes. We just want to redirect that energy into something that's positive and constructive, and speak to the fact that it's hard, but just because it's hard doesn't mean we don't have control over it. So,
and that's a great way to lead into the uncontrollables of the game and life. And one of the biggest things we can't control is failure. And so in softball and baseball, you fail 7 out of 10 times if you're a 300 hitter. We've heard, Matt, I'm sure you've heard that your whole life. I've heard that my whole life. If you're a 300 hitter, I mean, think about that. You fail 7 times out of 10. That's more than succeeding. You're only being successful 3 times. I mean, who wants to hear that?
I mean, any other aspect in life, like if you fail 7 out of 10 times, like, dude, you're fired. Like, yeah. It's like it just doesn't work, except ball and bat sports, like, we're gluttons for punishment. Let's sign up for something where we get to succeed 30% of the time and get called really good.
Right. So, I mean, channeling that and knowing, okay, this game I went 0 for 3. But, I mean, you got to look at that 0 for 3 and see, did you advance a runner? Did you score a run with a sac fly? And channeling that and seeing, okay, I went 0 for 3 today. What do I need to do to fix that? And that's where you need to, I think, channel your mindset on being better and bettering yourself for not only internal purposes, but for your team and your coach and your family. And that's hard. It's not easy to fail, but I mean, what insight do you have on overcoming that failure?
Yeah, I mean, I think the perspective that we're talking about and being prepared ahead of time of the different things you might encounter helps to go through that. Because I mean, as players, and I know a lot of our parents and coaches have played baseball, softball, other sports, so we've experienced what it's like to succeed and fail in athletic competition. But just talking to our athletes and being like, hey, remember, like, this is hard. Like, you can't control this. Like, you're going to square a ball up and hit the crap out of it. It's going to go right at somebody on the field and you're going to be out. Even though you did everything right, you still are out. So I think just speaking to that is super important, so that we can help our athletes think ahead of the hard things that are going to come. So they're not like, we give them a chance to, when we're talking about preparation being something you can control, we're giving them a chance to, think through the adversity before it happens, so that they're a little more prepared to handle that. Because I mean, we're dealing with young people. Young people are learning and growing and developing emotionally and physically and intellectually in all different ways. And so the more we can help them think ahead, I think that's really, really important as parents and coaches.
That's very important. You mentioned growing emotionally and physically and developing. At 12 and under, I mean, these kids, their emotions are up and down. I know when I got to college, one thing they told me was I need to level out my emotions and, stay stay even keel and not get too high or get too low. That was something I didn't learn at a young age. So it was difficult. That was something I battled all throughout college, because I would get really high when we made great plays and we were winning, and I'd get really low if things weren't going our way. And I think having those conversations with our athletes when they're developing at a younger age will help prepare them, like you've talked about and like we've talked about. It will help them prepare for those failures, because it's going to happen. But having the conversations with them, asking them how they felt, what they saw, what they were going through during that game or situation they were in, I think will help. And just not looking at it as a way to yell at them. It's having the conversation with them. I think that's where, if we yell at them, they don't understand, and then their emotions go AWOL again.
Brittney, I think that's such a huge point, because, as coaches and parents, obviously, we have emotions involved because we care about our kids and we want to see them succeed. And so that's natural and understandable. But I also think we need to remind ourselves that we are the adults in this conversation. And if it's hard for us as adults to control our emotions, to handle adversity and failure, then how much more so for a young person? And depending on the age we're coaching, physiologically, like, their brains are literally still developing. So their capacity to think about the future, think about unintended consequences, think about how to handle emotions in a rational way in a very emotional environment. I mean, sometimes, like, you're literally asking them to do things that borderline not possible yet, because they're still learning and growing. So that's where it's even more important for us to be thinking ahead about this kind of stuff, because we have to be the adults in the conversation and guide them. Because the whole point of this youth sports thing in general is to help our kids learn and grow. We know most of these kids aren't going to be college athletes, let alone pro. So opportunities like this to help our kids learn and grow. I mean, that's the whole point. Like, otherwise, why are we even doing this? Because the trophies are going to get dust, right? I mean, when we're 35, when a 12-year-old's 35 years old, I mean, they're not going to look back and say, "Hey, remember when I was 12 and I hit like 412?" It's like, no, like, that's not the stuff that matters.
They remember their teammates. They remember the memories outside of the game itself, which I don't know about you, but for me as a coach, it drives me crazy sometimes. I mean, I love them making memories, but I also want them to remember the game itself. But usually a couple months or years down the road, when they're talking about a certain situation, it has nothing to do with the game. You're like, don't you even remember playing? No, it's the memories and the developing, and that's what helps develop them as people off the field.
That makes me thinking about development. And, there's one other, at least I know we can get into more, but there's at least one other huge topic of things that we can't control that I think we got to dive into for a couple minutes, and that's umpires and officials.
Yes.
Brittney, you're a catcher. I'm a catcher. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, but I mean, just thinking about, you cannot control an umpire's bad call.
Nope.
Period. And
no matter how much you try, you won't. And the harder you try, I feel like the less calls you are going to get.
100%. Yeah, it's like you can guarantee that if there's a 50-50 call and you've made the umpire upset with you, that consciously or subconsciously, the chances of that call going your way are not good. But it's like, we've all been there. We've all seen and maybe, and honestly, like, we've been there ourselves in terms of getting frustrated with umpires. But what kind of example are we setting as parents and coaches and adults if we're yelling at umpires? What do you think our kids are going to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being a catcher, I felt like a lot of the times I was apologizing to the umpire for a parent or a coach and trying to stay on their good side. And so, it's important. I mean, you're a catcher, so we're both biased about that position. But at the start of the game, I would always introduce myself and shake their hand and try and get on that good side, because I knew a couple innings or a couple pitches into the game, the coach was going to make a comment that I could just feel the eyes behind me roll back into their head. And I would very discreetly either apologize or ask him for feedback on what he saw. Umpires are human and they're going to make mistakes. We have to understand that and know that they are doing the best that they can and just give them a break, because if they aren't out there, we won't be out there.
No, that's a great point too. I mean, we literally need the officials to execute the game. It brings me back to, coaching last summer. We lost a 1-0 game and there was a super close play at the plate, where our guy got called out, and I mean, really close. Either side was going to be furious with whatever the call was. And so, so that was an interesting experience because, our players were saying things like, the umpire just stole the game from us. We got robbed, that we should have tied, we should have won because, we should have had that run. And I think it's important that we validate their feelings and even speak to that. Like, guys, I'm super frustrated with that call. I completely disagree with that in every single way. But here's the reality. I can't change it, and neither can you. So now we have a choice of focusing our energy on something that's wasted, like yelling at an umpire and trying to change something in the past, or as frustrating as that is, we can direct that energy forward and say, now what can I do because of that? What can we learn? If the game is still going on, it's like, how can we focus on scoring another run? And the other thing that I straight up tell players sometimes, and I think as parents and coaches we can keep in mind, is the bottom line is, if we are relying on an umpire's call to win a game, we weren't good enough to win that game in the first place.
Exactly.
So let's just call that what it is. Like, if you need the umpire's help, then we need to talk about how we're training and practicing, and we need to focus on getting better, not focus on yelling at that umpire, because we got work to do if that's what we need to win a game.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it all right there. If you're relying on one call, then you did not put enough preparation into the game. It's hard, and it breaks the heart when it comes down to that one call, but it is what it is. And you got to learn from it. You can't take it out on the umpire, because he wasn't in that situation. He was in the situation to make the call, but he wasn't playing. That was us.
Absolutely.
So we have talked about a lot of controllables and uncontrollables, and each episode we always go into a quick win. We want to be able to give the listeners something to take with them so they can look at this as a whole and just have a quick idea on how they can either calm down from a bad call or a bad situation they're in, so they can look at it and understand if it's controllable or not controllable. And so, Matt, going into this episode, we were talking about an acronym, PACE. Can you tell the listeners about PACE?
Yeah. So obviously, you can make a list of a bunch of things that you can versus can't control, but you can probably summarize just about everything you can control in 4 categories. And so we use the acronym PACE, P.A.C.E. So you can control your preparation, your attitude, your concentration, and your effort. Just about anything we can control is going to fall into one of those buckets. And so for our quick win, we wanted to share a quote or a saying, whether it's the acronym alone or something that you might find helpful both for yourself as parents and coaches, and also for the athletes that work in it, is your pace will determine how you finish the race. Your pace will determine how you finish the race. If you want to win the race, if you want to finish well, then we need to stay focused on our preparation, our attitude, our concentration, and our effort. If you want to guarantee to losing the race or quitting the race or finishing poorly, then your preparation, your attitude, your concentration, your effort, if those are bad, there's no shot you finish the race. And by race, we mean whatever we're talking about, on or off the field. So maybe that's something that you can take with you, and you can use that with your teams, because it's easy enough to remember. Doesn't matter how old the kid is, they can remember the name, the word PACE. And you can use that to kind of define. It's like, bad call. Hey, remember PACE. Make an error. Remember PACE. Did something really well. Remember PACE. We can't control anything other than our preparation, our attitude, and our concentration and effort. So that is something that we wanted to offer up as something you might be able to take to your athletes and your teams.
I love that. And maybe instead of people saying, I need you to hustle, Maybe it can be, I need you to check your pace.
Nice.
I
Check your
just
pace.
love
I love that.
And I love it too, because I know when I tell my girls to hustle, they're usually rolling their eyes at me. And then that makes them have to run more. So I really love pace, and to tell our athletes, check your pace.
I'm 100% stealing that whenever we get to start coaching again, because I'm thinking about bad body language on the mound. I'm thinking about being in the third base box with the guy that strikes out, getting my parents in the stands. It's like, hey, check your pace. Not mad at you. Just check that pace. That's really good, Brittney. Crushed it.
Well, there we go. So that's all we got for today. And we need you to go and subscribe to our podcast. So the new one will hit your inbox wherever you listen to podcasts as soon as it lands. And then be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @HotCorner_pod. It's at @HotCorner_pod. And again, we got to give a big shout out to our producer, Cole. He's the man.
Yes, sir, Cole.
Our MSP staff, they're keeping us sane through the stay-at-home order. And our number one thanks goes to you, the listener. So until next time, remember that we are better together, and we'll talk to you next week.